Okay, so today we're going to get into a little bit of word problems on solving consecutive integers. Okay, so these are going to be some word problems that we're going to use in order to solve questions about integers. What are integers? Who remembers what integers are?
Numbers.
No. 1/2's a number, but it's not an integer.
Base numbers, such as like regular numbers like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. No decimals, no fractions.
No decimals, no fractions. We call those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We call those natural numbers. Okay, and then when we add 0 to our natural numbers, we call those whole numbers. So integers are whole numbers.
How come they don't just call them that?
Because they're opposites. So 1 is a whole number. Its opposite is -1. So -1 is an integer. So the whole numbers are only 0 and the counting numbers in the positive direction. The integers also add the negative numbers in the opposite direction. So when we talk about integers, they can be positive or negative. Okay? But you're right. There are no decimals and those no fractions. Okay. All right. When you count by ones from any number, it doesn't matter what number you start at, but if you count by ones, you get the set of integers, and they're consecutive integers. So it doesn't matter where I start. So if I start at 7, 8, 9, 10, those are all consecutive integers. If I start at 4, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So that's what we mean by consecutive, one right after the other in order. It doesn't matter where you start. I could start at -3. -3, -2, -1, 0, 1. Those are all consecutive integers, okay? That's what a consecutive integer is. It's numbers that go right after one another. If you count by twos, and when you were in grade school, you did this, right? In 3rd, 4th grade, you started counting 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Those are even numbers, okay? If you count by twos, you can begin anywhere, and you're going to get consecutive even integers. So if I start at 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, those are all consecutive integers. They're even numbers in order. And again, I could start at the negatives. That wouldn't matter. I could say -6, -4, -2, 0, 2. Those are all consecutive even integers. Okay? We're going in order evenly. And then it's the same thing with the odds, only you're starting on an odd number. That's the only difference. So 7, 9, 11, 13, 15, 17. Consecutive odd integers. So this is the language you got to get used to. They're going to call that consecutive odd integers. They go in order and they're odd. Again, I can start at the negatives. -13, -11, -9, -7, and so forth. Those are consecutive odd integers. From left to right on the number line, they keep coming consecutively in every two. Okay? Any questions on what integers, consecutive, odd, or even are? All right. So we're going to write these as variable expressions. Okay? So our word problems oftentimes are going to give us these, we're going to need to have these variable expressions. So for example, a consecutive integer is just n. N is just, we use the letter n just because it stands for number, but you could use anything. You could put x or p, or that doesn't matter. But whatever we start at is our n. That's just our starting place. So to get a consecutive integers, we just continue to add 1. So n plus 1 would be the second thing. Then n plus 2, n plus 3, n plus 4. Okay, those are consecutive integers. So if I started at 9, this would be 9, 10, because 9 plus 1 is 10, 11, 12, 13. See, I got 9, 9 plus 1, 9 plus 2, 9 plus 3, 9 plus 4, and so on. Those are consecutive integers. Now, if it says consecutive even or odd integers, that means, we're counting by twos. So that's why those integers is where we start, and then we add 2 to it, add 4 to it, 6, 8. So if let's say we want an even integers. So let's pick an even number for me, Gianna.
8.
So 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. Notice n is 8, n plus 2 is 10, n plus 4 is 12, 8 plus 6 is 14, 8 plus 8 is 16. Okay? Now what if I want an odd integer? Pick an odd number for me, Alex. 1. Okay, that's the easiest one. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9. Notice, n is 1. So whether it's a consecutive even integers or odd integers depends on where we start. If you start on an even number, they're going to be consecutive even integers. If you start on an odd number, there will be odd numbers. Notice n is 1, so n plus 2 is 3, 1 plus 4 is 5, 1 plus 6 is 7, 1 plus 8 is 9. That's all we mean when we talk about putting these in variable expressions. So if something says 2 consecutive integers, and they don't tell you what the numbers are, that's n and n plus 1. That's all they're talking about. Okay, so let's do some of these problems. So these are the kinds of questions that you're going to get. The sum of 2 consecutive integers is 43. So we just want to write these as variable expressions. So Eric, why don't you help me with this? What does this mean, the sum? Start out with the word sum. What does that mean? What is addition? It means adding. That's all sum means. You see the word the sum, you write an addition sign. Okay. Now it wants 2 consecutive integers. Okay, what are 2 consecutive integers? So those are the 2 things we're adding. So on this side we have, and on this side we have 2 consecutive integers. So what are we going to use for consecutive integers? If we don't know what the first one is, what are we going to use for the one we don't know? N. And again, you could, on your paper, you could write x, p. It doesn't really matter. The idea is that it's an integer. We're using n because it's going to remind you that it's a number. This is what we're talking about. And so if we want a consecutive integer, what would be the next one? What would we add? So if we have the sum of 2 consecutive integers, what's this one?
N.
Plus. If n is 1, what's the next consecutive number? What comes after 1? I'm sorry? 2. Yeah, that's not a trick question. So if this is 1, if 1 is n, then what is this one? N plus what? N plus 1.
Okay.
If this is 1, n plus 1 would be 2, right?
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
This is the sum of 2 consecutive integers. Okay? So that was our 2 consecutive integers. And then when we have the word is, what is that going to be, Eric?
Equals.
Equals. And then you just have a number. That's all they're asking for there, is to write that in a variable expression. So n plus 1 equals 43. And then we can simplify that just a little bit. What can we do to this to simplify that just a little bit? What's n plus n?
N.
N plus n. What is, if I have an n here and an n here and I add together, what do I have? How many n's do I have?
2n.
There you go. 2n plus 1 equals 43. So that's all that they're asking for there. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. All right. Let's see. Linda. The sum of 4 consecutive integers is negative 106. All right. So let's start with just something as simple as the sum. So what am I going to do with that? Add. Very good. Now what's the sum of 4? That means that I'm going to have 4 things I'm adding. How many plus signs am I going to have? Well, if I'm adding 4 things, the first one I don't need a plus sign. I just 3, right? So in other words, 1 thing, 2 things, 3 things, 4 things, right? 3 plus signs. So I'm going to add 4 things together, and then what does the word is mean? And we know it tells you what it equals, negative 106. So now all I got to figure out is what are these 4 things that I'm adding? And these 4 things I'm adding are called consecutive integers. So what am I going to put in my 4 places here for consecutive integers? Well, the first one's the easiest because that's always the same. What's the first one going to be? We're always going to start with n. It's just a number we don't know. We're always going to start with n. That's a number that we don't know.
So first one's n, the second one's n plus 1, the third one's n plus 2, the fourth one's n plus 3.
Yeah. Because no matter what this number is, it doesn't matter. You're going to add 1 to it to get a consecutive integer, and then 2 to it to get the second one, and 3 to get the third one. Okay, so how would I simplify that, Felix? I got all this, so now what? I'm sorry? Well, here they just want us to write them. They don't want us to find what n is. Yeah, eventually we're going to solve these equations, but right now they just want to... So how am I going to simplify this to make it shorter? How many n's do I have? I'm just adding everything. How many do I got? 4. And how many numbers do I got?
3 numbers.
Well, if I add them together, what am I going to get? 4n plus 6 equals 106. That's all they want you to write. Eventually, we're going to get to solving these. But for now, they just want you to write these.
Obviously, one of the n's is negative.
Yes. Okay. The sum of 3 consecutive odd integers is 75. All right, Weston, what am I going to do with this? What's sum tell me? Add. How many plus signs am I going to need? I'm adding 3 things. How many am I going to need? 2 things. There you go. So if I add those, my 3 things is 75. I think you all understand that's equals 75. So it wants 3 consecutive odd integers. So what are my 3 things I'm going to add?
Odd number.
The first one's always the same. What's the first one? N. If I want to add, then what am I going to add to it?
2.
N plus 2. Good.
And n plus 4.
N plus 4. Yep. These will keep giving me odd integers. Okay, so I'm going to simplify that. What am I going to simplify that to?
3n plus 6.
3n plus 6 equals 75. Okay.
Answer the next one.
Sure. The sum of 4 consecutive even integers is negative 100.
So, blank, 4 blanks.
Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4.
Equals 100.
Equals what?
Equals negative 100.
Negative 100. And what is going to go in between my blanks? What am I doing?
Adding.
Good. What am I going to add? 4 consecutive even integers.
N.
And,
1n, 1 plus n.
well, notice that they're even integers. They're not consecutive
Oh,
integers. They're consecutive even. So what am I going to add?
2 n plus 2.
N plus 2.
N plus 4. N plus 6.
Simplify the whole thing for me.
4n plus 12.
Okay. What's up?
Can you scroll up? Just I want to see that one. Why does they have n plus 2 and n plus 4 there, and then the other one has n plus 2 and n plus? Now one's odd, and the other one's even.
Because all that makes it odd or even is the number I start with. So if I start with 1, then 1 plus 2 is 3, and 1 plus 2 is 1 plus 4 is 5. So these would be consecutive odd integers. But if I started with 2, my n plus 2 would be 4, and my n plus 4 would be 6. So 2, 4, 6. It's the same equation. The only difference is what I start with is going to determine whether it's an odd or even integer.
Why do you start with 1 if it's odd?
What's that?
Like, can you start with a different number?
Sure, absolutely. Let's pick a different color. So, all right, let's pick an odd number.
5.
So if that's 5, this is 7, this is 9. You have consecutive odd integers still. Okay? Same with the evens. If I started with 8, 10, 12. Okay? So when I start with n is neither odd or even. It depends on the problem. N just means it's a number. It can be an odd or an even number. It doesn't matter. All right. So let's get a little bit wordier. Okay, let's see. Katie. 4 cousins were born at 2-year intervals. The sum of their ages is 36. Where do I want to start with this thing?
Well, it's going to be equal to 36.
That's a good place to start, you
Yeah,
know.
I know. It's like I'm really smart.
That's good.
Thank you, President.
What's the only way?
Well,
Okay.
we're going to use the even thing because the 2 years.
Because they're 2 years apart, so you're going to use, right, plus 2 intervals. And how many are there?
4.
So
So
let's,
we're going to use like 3 more, or at addition sign.
right. Because they're born every 2 years, we're adding 2 years in between. So what do I got?
And then we're going to do like n, and then we're going to do like n plus 2, n plus 4,
Very good.
And that's equal to 36.
Right, so when I'm going to simplify the whole thing, what am I going to get?
I don't know. Something like
How many n's do I have?
4.
So I have 4n. Now add up my numbers.
And 12.
12 equals 36. That's all that is. You guys have any questions on those?
Wait, yes.
Sure.
Is the first one 0?
Oh, I don't know. You could solve it, but they're not asking to. I could solve it. Let me see. I can tell you it's going to be 20. No.
What?
I can tell you what it's going to be. It's going to be 6. Because 6 plus 2 is 8, 10, and 12. Add those up. 12 and 10 is 22, and 8 is 30, and 6 is 36. So the first cousin is 6 years old. When this cousin turns 6 years old, 2 years later, another cousin is born. 2 years later, another cousin is born. And 2 years later, another cousin is born. All 4 of their ages are 36. So it's not asking to solve right now, but if I can solve it in my head. So 6 is going to be the answer. So the first cousin is 6. The youngest cousin is 6. The oldest cousin is 12. Okay. Let's see. When's the magic going to happen?
It's sinking.
Ah, all right. Okay. The sum of 3 consecutive odd integers is 40 more than the smallest. What are the integers? Now they want us to solve, and they're giving us a domain to put some things in for n at the end and then figure out what the answer is. So let's first set up the equation. So, Elise, what is the sum of 3 consecutive odd integers? Well, you see, let's start with this. You see the is, so that's going to tell me right away, in the middle somewhere of my question is going to be an equal sign. So on this side of the equal sign is the sum of 3 consecutive odd integers. So what am I going to do?
N plus something.
Well, what's the something? What comes, if it's odd, I count by how many? I count by 1s or 2s?
Once.
Nope, that would be consecutive integers, but if they're odd, it's every 2. Okay?
Yeah.
So n plus, what's the next one? So if one is n, then the next one is,
1.
you just said it, n plus 2. You're counting by 2s. So this is the first thing. So that's adding 2 things. How many things am I going to add?
3.
3.
2 is even, isn't it?
That doesn't matter. If this is an odd number or an even number, you're going to add to it to get the next consecutive one. So what's the last one here? So Matt, everyone looking at me, please. So you're looking at 3 here. So n plus 2, what's the next one?
N plus
4. You're just counting in even numbers. Okay. And now, what is all that? 40 more than. Well, what does that mean? 40 more than.
40 more than something.
Well, how do I write that in math symbols? What's 40 more than mean?
Plus 40.
Plus 40. So I'm adding 40 to something. And what am I adding it to? The smallest. Well, which of these 3 things was the smallest? N plus 2, or n plus 4?
2. N.
N. Good. Okay. So let's simplify this a little bit. Let's simplify this side. How many n's do I have?
3.
What do my numbers add up to?
6.
6 equals 40 plus n. Now everyone do this. You're going to put in these 3 numbers for your n and tell me which of those gives you a true statement. Is it 13, 17, or 25? Everybody do that. And then raise your hand when you have it.
What are you doing?
You're going to take these 3 numbers. It's telling you the answer is one of these 3. The domain for the smallest.
3 times what? Oh,
3 times n
the numbers.
plus 6.
What? So 3 times 13.
So the first one you do 3 times 13 plus 6 equals 40 plus 13. And you see, is that a true statement or not?
Okay.
And then you go to the next one until you find which one is a true statement.
Then you want
Everyone's doing it. Everyone's got your pencils out and you're drawing it down. Raise your hand when you have the answer.
Can you do it in your head?
If you're that good, you can do it in your head, but do it. Raise your hand once you have an answer. What's the answer?
17.
So,
What?
you're
No,
saying it's,
that's not it.
well, let's see. So 13 times 3 is 39 plus 6, which is 45 equals 53. So we know that one's not it. Okay.
Oh.
3 times 17 plus 6 equals 17 plus 40, which would be 57. 17 times 3, 30. And that does come out to 57.
Look who's right. Look at that.
Oh,
Look at that.
So it wants to know, guys. So it wants to know what are the integers. So what are the three integers? So it wants to know what are these three things. So we know the smallest one is 17. What's the next one? What's the, no.
17.
Guys, look at me. What is it? 19, right? And 21. So the three integers are 17, 19, and 21. We know n is 17, n plus 2 is 19, n plus 4 is 21.
I don't like this.
All right. Everyone do this one on your own. And give me the answer. Raise your hand when you have the answer. Please don't talk. Hoji, do you have a pencil? Write this down, please. Work on it. Try to do something. See what we get. Everyone's writing this. Raise your hand once you have the answer.
Well, hopefully we have time to get to it, but if not, it will be.
I think we only have like a minute left.
Okay.
So I need to write down my homework before. Yeah.
Page 78, mixed review 1 through 12.
You mean one? Yeah, and then. And is this homework?
Do the ones on the sheet. Those will be just like the ones that were on the board. Yes, finish the sheet for homework, and then these. There's not many of these. There's only unbelievable. There's only 8 of those word problems. The rest of these are just some mixed reviews. So there's only 8 problems. So the sheets won't take you that long. I'm here after school if anyone needs help. I'm also here 4 study halls during the day. You just gotta let me know. I'm here for you.
We're not watching the movie.